What's up YouTube, and welcome to another Infinite Painter tutorial where today I'm going to show you how you can create this Olaf design. Now I'm going to do things a little bit differently in this tutorial. We're going to go ahead and have the palette the whole time, which is a little graphic that we're going to keep in the top left of our canvas so that we can go back to it and grab the color. I will show you how you can go about doing that. But you're going to need to go ahead and grab the palette image that you can see there top left. There's also a stencil that you can grab for Olaf here, and I will guide you through creating your canvas, adding the images that you need to the canvas, such as the palette and the stencil, and we're good to go. As always, make sure to tag me in your finished creations over on Instagram. Make sure to follow me over there, and of course subscribe here for more Infinite Painter content. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the tutorial, and let's get started. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and create a new canvas. So in your area here where you've got your canvases, we're going to hit the plus icon. We're going to change the canvas size to 2000 by 2000. Feel free to make it smaller than 2000 by 2000 if you want to get more layers. It doesn't really matter. If you are 1000 by 1000, you may get some additional layers based on your device. So we're going to hit create. And once we're through to our canvas, we're going to do two things. We're going to first of all grab the stencil guide for today. So we're going to go ahead and go up to our three dots here. We're going to go to the option of import, and we're going to grab a photo from our gallery. You're going to need to find the stencil that I've provided of Olaf. Once you've tapped on it in your photos and you've found it, this menu here will change. It's going to ask you, do you want to import it as a layer or a reference? We're going to hit it as a layer, and then we're going to hit the tick, and it should naturally just snap perfectly. And our subject there is nicely in the middle. Now, a new thing that I'm doing for the palettes is we're going to import it as a photograph. So we're going to go to our options. We're going to go to the option of import again. We're going to go to our photos and again find the other photo that I've provided as well. Once you find that, the only thing we're going to do differently is we're going to tap on reference. So now our palette is just up here floating as a little window, and you can put it wherever you like. So we can move it around, we can scale it up and down. And I'm just going to position it up in the top left of our canvas here, so we've got it to go to. Now if we want to go ahead and grab a color from it, all we have to do is simply tap. Tapping on any color, you can see it changing here. It's going to change the color for us. Now if you don't have a device that has that available, go up to your three dots, go to settings, and we're going to go ahead, and if you go to the option of long press, you can change it to the eyedropper as well. So just use that if your device doesn't have it. You'll just have to hold down on the color instead. So just change long press to eyedropper as well, and you're good to go. So what we're going to do before we get started again and drag out our layers, we're going to tap on this layer here, and just here where it says layer 1, this is our stencil. We're going to rename it. We're going to call it stencil. Once we've done that, we now can get started with the rest of it. So we're going to create a new layer, drag it underneath our stencil. Then we're going to go to our colors, and we're going to grab this color here. It's the middle color in the third column from the right. So fourth column even, the middle color, tap on it to grab it or hold down and long press. We're then going to go to our brush. I'm going to go to calligraphy and the monoline brush. And if we go to our settings, I'm going to make sure that my settings here are nice and smoothed out. So we've got a nice smooth setting on the monoline brush. So to get to that, just hit this icon here and change the smooth up. So I've gone up to about 80. Feel free to use the fills brush if you prefer it. It's the same way of doing the same thing. So I'm going to go up to about sort of 40 points. And the first thing I'm going to do is draw in the head. So I'm going to go ahead and just follow our guide here, and we're going to get all the basic shapes in. So sometimes it's much easier just to get all of your shapes in, and then we can get started on drawing in every single layer. And when I provide a stencil guide, it's typically because either the design's got a little bit of complexity to it, or it's a character. So today, being a character, I've provided a stencil guide. It's always my preference to do so that we match up perfectly. At the end of the day, this is a character, and we want to make it look like that character. I'm going to increase the size up quickly and just fill in the center. Yes, we could use the fills tool, but you get that really blurry line around the outside. So I'm just going to quickly fill in here, make sure we don't leave any gaps. Let's then go ahead and create a new layer, drag it underneath the one that we just worked on, and we'll move down into the body and repeat. So we're just going to draw in the body here and go all the way around, fill in your gap. Create another new layer, drag it underneath. So you're going to have a lot of layer management with this. You're going to have to keep an eye on your layers and where mine are as well. I'm going to do exactly the same. Draw in the body. We're just going to make sure we go as close to the guide as possible, staying inside and then go all the way around. Just fill in like so. And then we're going to create 2 new layers again. We'll drag one under first of all, and then we'll grab the other one and drag that all the way to the bottom. The top one out of the empty 2 layers, we're going to do this foot here. So we're just going to bring the size down to about sort of 26%. I'm going to come down and around and then up and then fill that in here. If we go to the empty layer underneath it, we're going to get this foot in, go into that gap and then fill it in as well. And there we go. We've got all the basic shapes of the snow. We're going to go above the head here. So this layer here, create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and grab a dark color. So we're going to grab this color here, the top of the 3rd column. I'm just going to tap, it will change the color for me. We're going to go ahead and we're going to draw in the eyes. Now I reckon we can get a good size, maybe around about sort of 50 points, and it would pretty much match up to that. So I'm just going to go a little bit lower than that. Let's go down to about sort of 46. And that's pretty much bang on. I'm going to make sure I tap perfectly in the center of the eye, and I'll get 46, and I'll get the pupils in. Then I'm going to go ahead and reduce the brush size down to about sort of 20 points. Doesn't matter, as long as you can draw in these little stones that go on the chest. And again, just fill them in. We're going to go along this rock here too, like so, and then fill that one in. And we'll do the same on this last one. Filling them in. And then we've got all of our dark details. We're going to tap on the head again, create another new layer. And as I always recommend, go up to your options and hit save. Just create a point that you can go back to in case it crashes or anything like that. We're going to go ahead and change our color to the white. So we're going to go to our colors. Just going to drag up to the top left. That will be white, and then we can zoom in and we're going to go ahead and draw in the eyes here. So draw in a lovely great big circle and then fill in the gap. Do the same over here as well. Now don't worry about where it runs underneath the nose. We're going to fix that in a minute by just simply drawing the nose on top. Let's do exactly that. We'll create another new layer. We're going to go ahead and grab the middle color here in the 2nd column. We're going to reduce the brush size down to something quite small, maybe around about sort of 10. And we're going to get the nose drawn in. So once we get all of these shapes in, this sort of tutorial is going to be more of an exercise as to sort of highlights and shading a little bit. So we're just using this subject today, Olaf, as the subject which we can practice our highlights and shadows with in a really fun snowy design. Now we've got one more set of layers to create for our subject, and that's going to be all the branches. Now I'm going to do that on the same layer. It's fine, it can stay on the same layer as the nose. We're going to go ahead and we're going to grab the middle color in the 1st column. Just simply tap on it. We're going to zoom in and we're going to get the arms in. So we're going to go down the arms, trying to get some of the lumps and bumps in here. There's a little sort of bit that sticks out there. I'm going to go along what is the fingers essentially. And I'm going to reduce the brush size down to about sort of 10, just to be a little bit more precise. Fill in any gaps as I go, just to save myself some time. And we're going to come down here and fill in this area here. And we'll go along the top edge. Going around. And then we'll just get in there, fill in any gaps. You can use the fill tool, whatever you prefer. I think in Infinite Painter, the fill tool itself is a bit rubbish, to be honest. So I'm going to go ahead and just simply fill them in myself. Now here, we don't need to sort of worry too much about getting too close to the body. You can, if you want though, drop it down to maybe sort of 6 and just draw in a line that gets as close as you can. But we can go ahead and cut the shape from it later on if needs be. So I've just drawn in a little line here, and then with a 10 brush size, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest. So I'm just starting anywhere on the branch. And that was a little bit glitchy, so we'll get rid of that. We'll do it again. Coming down here, into here, down like so. Now I always get asked in my tutorials, what am I using? I am using an iPad Pro. It's the 11-inch 2018 version and the Apple Pencil 2. If you are on Android, there are plenty of alternatives you can use. I do recommend the OnePlus Pad if that's something you're interested in actually buying an Android tablet. Otherwise, if you get a cheap iPad, you'll also have everything you need in order to complete these tutorials, as well as potentially some Procreate ones. So just in case you're interested. Now I'm going to switch my eraser quickly, and I'm going to go to calligraphy and the monoline brush. And with a small brush size, I'm just doing this quickly because it's potentially not an issue for you. I'm just going to go ahead and just erase down here because I've just run a little bit astray of the guide there. And that looks pretty good to me. So if we go to our layers and we go ahead and tap on this layer here, so it's layer 3 for me, we need to go ahead and tap on it and use the option of select, which is now going to select that shape only. If we then go back up to the layer here that's got all the nose and the branches on, if we make sure we've got our eraser selected, we can actually erase this part here from the layer that has the branches on. So now it definitely fits in perfectly up to that edge and in behind. And to cancel that, we'll just simply tap on the red dot up here, and that selection's now done. Now we've got a little bit more to do. So if we go back to our brush, we keep the brown still, we're going to go ahead and go up these branches here. And these ones have like a little bit sort of a quite janky, quite straight sort of edges to them. So try and sort of get them in a little bit sort of straight and a little bit more animated. Going down here. And by the way, my size of my brush is 10. And I'm going to get the last one in here and link that up. We then just need to draw in the eyebrows. So we're going to reduce the brush size down to about sort of 5. We'll get the eyebrows in here too. So let's just make that a little bit bigger, about 9. We're going to go along, up, down, like so. Let's get the final eyebrow in as well. Along here, down the edge, and then up and along. Again, getting all these basic shapes in here so we can get started then on the rest of it. So let's then go ahead and tap on our background color down here. We're going to tap on it and we're going to change the color. And then we're going to go ahead and grab the pipette option here. And we're going to tap this color here in the bottom right of the palette, really dark color like so. What we're then going to go ahead and do is everything other than our stencil, we'll leave that at the top. We're going to pinch all these together. And if we pinch all of our layers except our stencil together, it's going to go ahead and put them in a folder for us. It's going to put it in a group so we can just turn it on and off in one go. If we then create a new layer, drag it underneath that group, we'll just take a look at our canvas. We're going to go ahead and we're going to grab this color here. So it's going to be the bottom color in that second column from the right. So this one here, we're going to tap on it to grab it. We're going to go to our brush. We'll go to the option of fills. So we will go to fills, solid fill, and we're going to go ahead and draw in the background. And the background's just going to be like a bit of a wobbly line just to create some sort of extra sort of little bit of sort of environment and go all the way down and around. So you can see how high I've gone there. We're then going to create another new layer. We're going to go ahead and we're going to grab the color that's going to be this color here. So the middle of the third column from the right, this one here, is the same as our subject. We're going to go ahead and from sort of around about here, we're going to swoop up just in behind our subject, like he's up on a bank, and then maybe a little sort of bump there, and then let that run off to the right. And then if you let go like I do, you can just go all the way around, fill that in like so. So let's go ahead now and work on the background. So we're going to create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and we're going to drag it all the way to the very bottom. And because we've now got all of our basic shapes, let's also go back up to our 3 dots and hit the option of save. Just a gentle reminder to constantly keep doing that. We are now on the background layer. We're going to go to this color here, the middle of the far right column. Tap on it, you'll see it change. We're going to go to our brush. We're going to go to the option of airbrushing. So once we find airbrushing, it's going to be under sprayers. And we're going to grab the soft airbrush. Now I always set my soft airbrush to about 40% opacity and 63 flow, just because it works a lot nicer for me. It kind of matches Procreate a bit more. And the size of the brush, it's going to be fairly large. I've got it up to the 600 marker here. And what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that there is a light source coming in from the top right, and it's just coming across the sky here, and it's going to angle down towards our subject. And we're just going to build up this blue, blend it out into the rest of the sky, but primarily sort of focus a beam coming down here, down towards our subject. Lovely bit of colour there. And then we're going to go ahead and grab this colour here in the top right. So I've tapped on it now to select it. I'm going to bring the size down just a little bit, down to maybe around about sort of 450. And I'm going to just brighten up that beam a little bit with a slightly more sort of whitish colour, just towards the centre of the beam though, nothing else outside of it, just that middle point. It's just going to give us a really bright light source. Maybe it's the moon in the background. Let's then move to this layer here. You can see me turn it on and off, that bank there. We're going to tap on that layer and we're going to alpha lock it. So we're going to tap on the lock, which means we can't paint outside of it now. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go to our colors and we're going to grab the middle color in the second column from the right. So this color here, we'll tap on it to select it. Same soft airbrush still for a moment. We're going to go ahead and at the bottom here, just introduce a bit of a glow from the bottom area. So it's going to transition from this new color we're adding in into the one that we originally added. So it's just going to blend the two together. Let's then also add some snowy detail with the brush that we're going to use today. And if we go to our brush, we're going to use the spray paint brush. Now, what I do recommend, because I know everybody's going to have a slightly different experience with this, I recommend you otherwise try maybe the sand blaster or otherwise the splatter brush. Because I've got pressure sensitivity, I can be in full control. So I'm going to use the spray paint brush, but otherwise if you don't have pressure sensitivity, maybe try the sand blaster just so you can add it in a very smaller but gradual way. So I'm going to use the spray paint. I'm going to go ahead and grab the color for today, which is going to be the top here of the third column from the right. It's going to be our highlight color. Our brush size, it's about sort of 360 at the minute, and I don't get a brush head. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to zoom in and just take a look and see the little sort of speckles and the grains that this is adding on to the background area here. And we just want to focus the grains towards the bottom here. We'll do the same over here too, just going left to right, focusing it more here, letting all the grains get really close, because as things get further away, we're going to lose detail. Now, once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and actually tap on this layer and we're going to add a mask to it. So we tap on the mask and you get this little addition here. Now, a mask allows you to show and hide certain parts of a design. So we've got the mask. We know we're on the mask because it's got the red line around it. A mask, you can only draw black, white, or grey. And we're going to go ahead and go to our colors. We're going to grab black even in the bottom right. You'll see it's now changed though to black and white. If we go to our brush and we change it to the option of soft airbrush again, so this brush here under sprayers, the size isn't necessarily critical, but I'm going to drop it down to about sort of 450 so I can be in a bit more control. And I want to sort of blend out the top edge here of this part of the design. So where it fades off into the distance, I want to literally just blend out some areas of it, getting rid of it and sort of blending it off like it just runs off into the distance, into the rest of the landscape, and we can't see it. So we're just sort of fading that out a bit more, focusing all the attention a bit more on this area right in front of us. That is now done with. Again, let's go up to our three dots and hit save. Let's move to the ground in front of it. So this one here, we're going to tap on it and we're going to alpha lock it so we can't paint outside of it. Our brush wants to go back and we're going to use the spray paint. Again, use sand blaster if you need to. So every time I use spray paint in future, work out which one you're going to use depending on what you've used already. Now I'm going to go ahead and tap away for a moment because I'm going to grab this color here, the bottom of the third column from the right. So this color here. I'm going to go ahead quickly and just go to my create options and go to the option of fill and just tap here because this is the wrong color as it stands. Once I've done that, I can hit the tick when I'm done. I'm now going to grab the middle color in that third column from the right. We've still got our brush selected and the layer is still alpha locked. So we can now get started. Now what we want to do is we want to bring in the light from up here. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of just bring in this area here. Now I'm going to make the brush size a bit bigger again, about 400. We're going to brighten up on this ledge here into here. Now where this sort of little dip down happens, we're going to imagine it sort of runs off round here. So we're going to bring that light and the brighter snow up this edge, up towards our subject's feet. I'm going to make the brush size a bit bigger again. I'm going to go back up to about sort of 500. So I'm just going to really add the snow in quite a fast way. And then also on the back edge as well, we're going to add some highlight on here and let that kind of run down the edge here into this area. And you can add a really light coat here and there just to sort of add some speckles into the areas that we can't quite see. So these areas down here. So just minor amounts of detail to sort of fill out the whole scene. And then once you've done that, you can then go ahead and go to the top color in the third column from the right, this one here. We're going to reduce that brush size down now to be a bit more precise, about down to 370. And we're going to repeat. We're going to go ahead and sort of brighten up this top edge here, but now we're in our brightest color. And the wonderful thing, what will happen is this piece of land that we added in the back now should start to sort of blend into the land that we're adding here on the front, because the two colors match. So you should start to somewhat lose that a little bit, that sort of solid line, and that's exactly what I want. I'm going to run this color into here. It's the brightest of our snow. I don't want to get too close to our subject. A little bit on the back edge here as well, just on that top. I'm going to let that kind of run in a little bit closer to his feet and then push that out. So you should end up with a nice graduation of the color. But we do have a slightly darker color to add. So this color here, the bottom of the third column. I'm going to increase my brush size up to something around about sort of 600. And then just in the corner down here, we're just going to darken up this corner. And we're going to darken up this corner, just to focus people's attention a bit more towards the center of our design. We don't want people looking in the corners, we want them looking at the center. So just darkening up the edges here. Now let's go ahead and add in a shadow to our subject before we make our way up the body. So we're going to create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and with the same color we're currently working with, we're going to go ahead and bring that size down of the brush down to something quite small, about sort of 130 to start with. And we're going to try and just add in a bit of a shadow underneath the feet, like so. And then just bring that size up a little bit, up to about sort of 250. And I'm going to really lightly, I'm really light with my pressure as it currently stands. I'm just building up a line that we're trying to push this way. Now don't worry if it doesn't line up perfectly, because we can always just move the layer. So I've created a bit of a shadow. I'll just go to my create options and go to edit, basic transformation, and just move that up a little bit like so. That's fine. We can bring that node in a tiny bit, make it a little bit smaller, and then hit the tick when we're done. And we've added a lovely little shadow in behind our subject. Let's now move into our subject. And as always, 3 dots, hit save, and you've got a great point to come back to. If we now go ahead and open up the group for our subject, we'll start at the bottom of the layers and make our way up. So the bottom layer here is the left foot. We'll tap on the layer, we will alpha lock it. We're going to go to our first shadow color, which is the bottom of the fourth column, to this color here. Same brush, it's the same brush we're going to use throughout the whole of this. We'll bring our layers across for a minute. And we're going to shadow underneath. Now that's huge. We want to bring that size right down, back to under 100, so we can be in full control. And we're just going to sort of shade under here. Keep your pressure nice and light. And just start with a nice light pressure and then build up to create a bit of a shadow, and most definitely in this gap here, leaving just a little bit of sort of the original color on the left. Then grab your next shadow color, so the bottom of the third column, and then just darken up under there a bit more and in that groove. But you want to have a nice blend between the two colors. Now sadly, sometimes this brush doesn't always provide you with the brush head, so you can't see it every single time. So you may have to just keep guessing. And then just a little bit of a shadow on the bottom, just the tiniest little bit. You can see how far out I am. I'm out here trying to just shade underneath. And then if we go to our white here at the top of the fourth column, we'll just very lightly on this edge over here, just build up some white and just blend it in. Simple, nice little sort of shading. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my stencil because I don't necessarily need it on anymore. We're going to go to the next layer, which is this one here. We'll tap on it. We will alpha lock it. You can go up to your 3 dots and hit save, of course. And we'll repeat. So we're going to go down to the bottom of the fourth column. We first of all shade underneath the body, because the body's going to cast a big shadow across onto this leg. And then we can just shade around this side over here. You see, with the pressure sensitivity, you can really blend across. You see how sort of gradually it's slowly getting darker. Lovely stuff. Then if we grab the bottom of the third column, we'll shade underneath here, adding in a much darker shadow, and then just a little bit in your sort of main shadow area over here. And just like before, we grab the top of the fourth column, we brighten up the front area over here, keeping it nice and white, a little bit more snowy. And what we can also do is just add a bit of a reverb highlight, so just a little bit of a white edge over here where the light is bouncing off of the snow and hitting our subject. Now I am going to go back to my darkest shadow, the bottom of the third column, and I'm just going to darken up the feet area here just a little bit where it gets really close to the ground. Just sort of blend that out a bit more, darken that up. Lovely stuff. Let's then move to our next layer. The next layer up is the body. We'll tap on it and we will alpha lock it. 3 dots, save. Then we'll go to the bottom of the fourth column. Make that brush size a little bit bigger this time. We've got a much larger space to work with. So I'm going to go up to about 180 this time. I want to shade underneath here. So underneath where that body is. Now you may need to bring your stencil back on if you need to. And the light source is coming from the left, so the shadow is going to drag out to the right hand side. So we can first of all shade underneath the object, which is this additional ball on top, of course, ball of snow. And then I'm going to go a bit larger again, about sort of 240, and just shade this edge over here, keeping the pressure nice and light to start with. Don't worry if you don't leave a little bit of a reverb light over there, we'll just come back to it. I'm going to blend it round, add in a few light specks here and there, and also darken it up towards the bottom a little bit. So you kind of want to round it off. So you're coming round here, round it off down here. Lovely, look at that. Then we'll go ahead and reduce our brush size right down to about sort of 50 points, maybe about sort of 60, and get right underneath our stones here and cast a bit of a shadow off of them too. So just sort of creating a bit of a drop shadow there. You'll see it more on this one here where I just darken up underneath this edge here first of all, and then very, very lightly just sort of push it further and further away from the stone in that direction. Just add a bit of a shadow. We'll then switch to our darkest colour, the bottom of the third column. We'll make our brush size back up to something a bit larger, maybe something about 160, so we've got something easy to play with. And we can just darken up under here where the two connect. Lovely stuff. And then I'm going to make it even bigger again, about sort of 240, and darken up in here. So my pressure is really light, so that's why you're not seeing too much of a change. I'm going up and down, and I'm typically trying to do it in sort of multiple motions so I can build up the colour. If you do it in multiple goes, you can build up the colour and be in full control of it. Now that looks pretty good to me. I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and just darken up the very bottom edge a bit more. Just trying to do it in multiple goes. There we go. And then we'll switch to our highlight, the top of the fourth column. And then we do it on this side, of course. We're going to make our way along this edge over here, introducing the lovely white edge and bring that in. Now try not to destroy your shadows. You may need to reduce the brush size down to something a bit smaller, maybe around about sort of 120. And just get in this gap here. Be in full control. In this area here, you want to be quite light, really light. You don't want to destroy this shadow either. On the left, you can make it nice and bright. Bring that through there. And then just sort of brighten this up a tiny bit. We can add a bit of a reverb as well. So we can go ahead and just brighten up the underside there with a little bit of colour. And also if you accidentally didn't leave one, you can just go ahead and brighten it up from the back over here. Introducing a little bit of a white edging. Lovely stuff. Let's then move up a layer. It's the next part of the body. And just like before, we'll tap on it and we will alpha lock it. We will go to our 3 dots and hit save. And then we're going to go ahead and go to our shading color, the bottom of the fourth column. We'll change our brush, make it a little bit larger again, about 170 this time. And I'm going to just shade over here where the head's casting a shadow onto this area of the body again, and then curving the mid shadows. This is what I would call my mid shadows. It's our sort of middle color in our shadows. It's not our darkest yet, but we'll get there. And then we'll darken underneath. Then we'll move to our main shadow, which is this one here, the bottom of that third column. Go to your brush size, bring that down maybe a little bit, down to about 100, and then just sort of darken up under here, pushing that shadow off to the right hand side where the head's, blocking the light, like so. I'm going to make it a bit bigger again, about sort of 140, and then just shade in this area here. Trying to leave a little bit of that reverb lighting if you want to. You can just sort of plan it out now, but as long as you sort of darken up the underside as well, they'll look great. Now we're going to go ahead and I'll just stick with this color to start with. We'll just bring the brush size straight down to about sort of 70 points, and just underneath here, just add a bit of a shadow behind this little stone. And now we can switch our color to the highlight color, which is the top of the fourth column. Make that brush size probably around about 94. It's probably large enough that we can lighten up this edge over here. Lovely stuff. And then blend that in. Blending that in into here. Again, try not to destroy too much of your shadows. And brighten up that back edge if needs be. Lovely stuff. Look at that highlights and shadows. That looks great. And you can, if you want to, always go over your shadows with like a few specks of the white if you want to kind of break them down a little bit so they're not too harsh. Let's then move into the face. Now we're definitely going to go up to our three dots and hit save. We're going to go to the face layer. We're going to tap on it and we're going to alpha lock it. We're going to bring back in the stencil because we need to see this because we've got multiple elements on the same layer, but we've not got separate elements for them. What I mean is we've got the big tooth smile here. We've got the actual smile itself, but it's all on one layer. So what do? Well, we start off with our shadows first, and then we use our highlights just to reshape all of the objects. I'll talk you through the process. So we're going to grab the bottom color in the fourth column, just like before. It's basically the same process as this, with just a few things we need to factor in. Our brush size, I'm going to make it around about sort of nearly 200. So I can shade down this edge of the face, round it off at the bottom, blend a few specks across just to add in some texture. Lovely stuff. We're going to go ahead and go down the top edge of the head, around this edge over here. And then we need to go ahead and grab our brush size, bring it really down. I'm going to bring it down to about sort of 40, see what that looks like to start with. And we're going to go ahead and just sort of draw in the underside of the mouth. And it can go onto the tooth as well, that's fine. So this line here that we're drawing on top of is the mouth. And then we just want to sort of blend down a tiny bit, like so. We're then going to bring our brush size down even smaller, down to about sort of 20 now, and try and draw as close to that line with a little bit more pressure than we did before. Now don't worry if you go over the top edge of the line, that's fine. Our highlights are going to fix that in a second. Right now we just need to get that top lip in and make sure that we add that little sort of break between the bottom of the face and the top of the face. Another area we have to factor in is the tooth. So we're going to go ahead and draw down this edge over here, underneath the tooth, just the same fashion. So we're kind of drawing a really light line to start with, and then once we've got that we can blend it down, cast in that shadow. And in here too we're just going to sort of darken this up a tiny bit, blend them together, and we're already separating the tooth and the smile, etc. We're going to go round this edge over here, just creating a bit of a curve here. You can see me just going left, right, left, right, left, right, blending it together. And then we're going to add in another tiny little detail up here, which is just going to be the top of the cheek here. So it's just going to follow the curve a tiny bit up here, like so. Now, we're then going to go ahead and carry on with the rest of the face and come back to that in a moment. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring that size to around about sort of 30 this time. I'm going to go underneath the nose, really kind of light to start with, and then just sort of push this shadow this way. Now this shadow for the nose, this bit sticks off of the face, so we can just let that shadow just disconnect a little bit towards the end. So the shadow sits there, but it doesn't need to connect. And shadows don't always need to connect. They can always float if the object is no longer sat on that surface. We're going to go ahead and go round the eyes. I'm just going to make this a bit bigger this time, about sort of 52. Just going to go round the eyes, just sort of darkening them up a tiny bit. We do have to come back to the eyes and outline them in a minute. And on the inside too, just a little bit in there as well. And then we'll also reduce that brush size down to about sort of 29, and then just shade underneath the eyebrows as well. A little bit darker under there. Lovely stuff. Now let's go ahead and grab our darker color to the bottom here of the third column. And we now need to add in our shadows again. So we're going to make our brush size up a bit more to about sort of 60. I'm going to shade this side over here because that is the darkest area, especially over here in this corner. I'm going to go ahead and darken up a few of the shadows underneath the nose. Don't be afraid to be a little bit bold with it. I'm going to go around this edge of the back area of the face, curving that up and around and then down the edge up here. Now, we then need to take a look at the face and bring that size down again to about sort of 28, something really small. We can darken up in behind this area here. So this little corner over here is going to get really dark. We're then going to sort of darken up here. Now, don't worry again, if it goes onto the tooth, I'm going to color that in a minute. But we're going to bring that size right down to about sort of 8 or 9 now, and just sort of follow the line of the mouth, trying to add in sort of a really thin line right up against that stencil guideline. Lovely stuff. And then in this corner too, we'll just darken that up. That's going to help us sort of break all those shapes up. Now, I keep mentioning we're going to use our highlights to now bring back in some elements. We're going to do exactly that. We're going to go up to the top of the 4th column. I recommend we also go ahead and tap on the 3 dots and save. Again, we're using the top of the 4th column. Brush is going to go back up to something we can nicely sort of shade with, so about sort of 200 on this occasion. I'm going to start off on that left-hand side here, and then just very slowly build up the white, build it up, build up this highlight on this edge, and blend across the face. So that's the first thing, of course. We're then going to bring that size right down to something a bit smaller, about sort of maybe 37, something we're in a bit more control of. And then we're just going to color in the tooth. So we're just going to color it in. We're going to go right over the top of some of those shadow lines if we've drawn them in a bit too close onto the tooth, and that's fine. We're going to blend up towards that shadow, but not sort of destroy it too much. We're going to just whiten this up here. Lovely stuff. And we've got a big, nice white tooth there with a lovely shadow that sits underneath it. We can then go ahead and change our brush size again, maybe up to around about sort of 90 this time. Get really close up in here towards the mouth. We need to go around this edge up here, blending it in towards the face, trying to preserve some of the shadows we've created as well. So I'm going to bring that round here, so round this gap here, leaving this little line that I created. I'll blend that round, and I'm going to come down onto the top now, and we just color this in. If I now reduce the brush size down again to something really, really small, about sort of 37 maybe, I can get really close up to the top edge of this line, and we can now bring back in the top lip a little bit more and sort of take away some of those shadows. And then if we blend this back into the rest of the face, so we can blend some of this spray into this area here of the face, we can just now see the real separation between what was highlights and what is now shadows. We've got this fantastic looking animated face. Now on the same layer, we're going to go ahead and grab this color here, the top of the 3rd column, tapping on it a few times. We're going to go to our brush and make it even smaller, about sort of 18. We're going to zoom in. We're going to go round the very edge of the eye here, introducing a bit of a dark outline. He's got a really dark outline here to, I guess, help with the expressions potentially, and also separate the eyes from the face a bit more. It's got a bit of a dark outline up here. And then we're going to go ahead and we'll take a look at our layers. We can now grab the next layer. Now feel free to turn off your stencil as well. Take a look at what you've created, see if it looks how you want it to. I think that looks great. We can move on from here. So the next layer is the eyes. Now I don't want to sort of do too much to the eyes, to be honest. I want it to have that quite cartoony look, so I'm going to leave them. The next layer above is the nose and the arms. So we're going to tap on the layer. We will alpha lock it just like before. We'll go to our 3 dots and hit save. Let's work on the nose first. So we're going to zoom in. We're going to grab this darker color at the bottom of the 2nd column. We're going to go to our brush. We're going to keep it the same brush, about sort of 58% here or 52, and just shade the bottom area. Shade that bottom area, blending it up, so less specks towards the top. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make our brush size even smaller, around about sort of quite a small size, about sort of 6. And I'm just going to draw in some lines here. Just occasional little lines that just make their way up. And these are going to be kind of the grooves in the carrot. You don't want to do too many. You don't want them to be too evenly sort of gapped to each other. They're pretty even, but we're going to make sure we fix that down this end by not doing that. So you've got a few lines like this. Then grab the top color in that 2nd column. We're going to first of all make our brush size a bit bigger again, about up to 56, and just shade the top edge. And I say shade, we're going to highlight it. We're going to bring in some much needed bright orange. We're then going to bring that size down to, again, around about sort of that 7 or 6. And where you've drawn your lines, the right edge of each line, just get in here and carry on that color. So carry on that line up towards your highlight edge. And the two now will work as a bit of a contour to one another. So you're now highlighting those little creases by showing that there is a highlight edge as well. And then just to fit this into our sort of environment, we're going to grab the top color in the 4th column, reduce the brush size to a size that we can spray with, so about sort of 76, and just very lightly on the top of the nose here, just introduce a bit of white and a bit of white down the end here, just a few specks of it, just to sort of blend it into its environment. On the same layer, we've got the sticks as well. Now we're going to grab the darker color, the bottom of the 1st column. Going to bring that brush size down to around about sort of 20 points. I think that'll be fine. And we're going to darken up the right edge of these lines up here. I'm darkening up the right edge. You should be able to see that on screen. Just a little bit of a shadow on them. The underside of this one here. And down this edge as well. Really simple. We'll darken up the underside of the eyebrows. Again, keeping it nice and simple. And then we've got the other arms over here. So we'll darken up the underside again. And keep it nice and random. Keep it nice and sort of wobbly. Don't make it too perfect here and there. You just want to go ahead and darken up the underside of them. Bring them into the hand a little bit. Shade into here. It's just where the lighting is just not quite touching. And then on this side, we shade the right edge. Because the light source is up on the left, we want to shade down here, down the back, down here, and underside of this one too. And we'll maybe sort of just darken up a little bit where it connects to the body. So I'm just going to lightly sort of spray in some additional colour in there too. Lovely stuff. And now all we need to do is add in the environment. So we're going to go up to our 3 dots and hit save, of course, at the very top. You can collapse the group down for your subject if you like, and you can tap on your stencil and create a new layer at the very tippity top of your layers. Now we're going to go ahead and add in some of the atmosphere to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab the top color here in the 4th column. We're going to go to our brush. We're going to grab the water splatters, and I actually really like this brush for the snow. It's almost like it's out of focus slightly. So we're going to use the water splatters brush under sprayers. Now the size is currently maxed out, and on this layer we're going to go ahead and create our largest snow. So we're just going to sort of drag down the screen with different levels of pressure, and I just think it has a really fun, just quite soft look to it because they're all very rounded. Then what we'll go ahead and do, we'll go to our brush size, we'll bring it down in size, maybe around about to the 200 mark, and we'll add in some sort of medium sized specks in here. So you don't want to go too mad too early. Adding in some medium specks in here, some much needed extra additional size. It's always loads more convincing if you can add in multiple sizes of things like stars in the sky or snow in this instance. And we can either go higher than this, we can go up to 400 or 3, or go even smaller and go down to maybe 100 and add in tiny, tiny specks here and there. Now try not to cover up your subject too much with your snow, just sort of dance it around the screen a little bit. Different amount of pressures will make them brighter, or if you keep your pressure nice and light, you'll end up with some really light strokes in here. And I just think it has a really fun look to it. Now we're going to go ahead and add in some extra lighting. We're going to create a new layer. We're going to tap on the layer and we're going to change its blend mode from normal. We're going to change it to linear dodge. If we then go ahead and grab the middle color in that far right column of our little palette here, and go to our brush and we go to sprayers and the soft airbrush. If we make that size a fairly decent size, maybe around about, let's go a bit bigger than that, about sort of 500, doesn't really matter. All we're going to do is bring in some more lighting from that top left corner now, and look how much brighter this gets. And nice and blue as well. Now you don't want to sort of draw up and over your subject too much. I don't want to add in too much lighting on the subject. We've already done all of that, so I don't want to go too mad with that. And all I'm going to do is just continue to build up that glow from that top left corner. The moonlight is nice and bright and it just highlights our subject. It puts them in the middle of the frame. It tells everybody where to look in your creation. And then if you want to, you could create another new layer. Tap on that and change the blend mode from normal to linear dodge too. And again, just go from that top left. It's going to get even brighter now, but maybe just sort of be cautious at this point that the light now is really going to get blown out. So don't go too mad with an additional layer. You don't want to overdo the lighting too much. That beam now, I would argue, is too much. So we could just go to the layer, hit clear, and then start again. We can just build up that color. The one central beam will look fantastic, but it's got to be really careful of that top left corner and it getting a little bit too overexposed up here. So once we have a wonderful little glow like this, we can maybe start to think about sort of just spreading it out a tiny bit. That's looking great. Look how much wonderful color we've got in there. We're going to hit the 3 dots. We're going to hit save, and we're going to go ahead and pinch with 2 fingers. We're going to go full screen with 4, and we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed today's design. As always, be sure to drop a like on the video and drop a comment down below of what you thought of it. Make sure to subscribe for more Infinite Painter content. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.